his lives with? Doesn't he start his lives with something every time? He always starts it
What
with the
is?
same thing.
I don't
What's up?
remember.
What's good? We are live. Tell me if the mics sound good. We don't have producers here, so I don't know if my mic's a little volume looks a little hot. So just let me know if it's a little hot. But we got a special guest. Everybody act proper. We got a guest in the house. You know, like when you got company over, don't act a fool.
Right.
Stephen Ignoramus is in the building. Ignoramus Media. What's good, sir?
What's up, man? Yeah, I'm really excited to be on here. You've been on my show a couple times over the last couple months, so I'm excited to be back here. I think it's going to be a good discussion, and I love your content, man. So I'm honored to be here.
Oh, I appreciate you, man. That means a lot, man. You do a great show. Love the humor, man, and you talk about some heavy topics and make it fun. It's not easy. So while everybody kind of gets into the live, I wanted to start with just like who you are. Do people know who Stephen Ignoramus is? Like, what are you about? Who are you?
What am I about? Well, I mean, it says in my Twitter bio, I believe I can quote it verbatim, that I'm an infamous live streamer. I'm a beloved music teacher. I've been streaming every weekday for about four years now, and I go for about 2 to 3 hours. I've done a couple 24-hour streams, but I'm an entertainer, man. I mean, I'm an entertainer, and I like philosophy and religion and history and things like that. So I've tried to tie in, my comedy and my music and things like that into my live streaming career. But basically, I just love the truth. I like talking to people. I like making fun of stuff, and I like being controversial. I don't try to be controversial for the sake of it. I mean, maybe now I do. Now that it gets a rise out of people, but I just like the truth, and I try to not care about popularity all that much. I care about what the truth is and who God is, and what fun is. So I've just tried to make a kind of a career, or I don't get paid. I'm a professional. I put a lot of time into it, but I don't get a lot of money or praise for it. But I just like the truth and live streaming and music and comedy. So that's kind of what I'm about. But I've been doing IRL events for a while. I'm going to CPAC in a month. I'm going to be covering that in person. So I just kind of just a reality show entertainer, I guess. Kind of cringe to say, in my opinion, but that's what it is.
No, man, you're being honest about what you
Yeah.
are. And I kind of feel like you do, where it's like, okay, you got a passion, you're doing it. You've been way more consistent than me at getting it out there. And you said you didn't make much money, so why are you doing this?
Well, I mean, part of it is I got a good job. I mean, I'm a music teacher, and I've been doing that for about 12 years. And if I didn't have a good career doing other things, I would either quit this or try to leverage it to make more money. But why do I do it? I just love talking. I mean, I've had this discussion. I've said this on my show recently, that if when I'm having drinks in someone's living room or whatever, I'm essentially doing my show anyway. So when we're talking about current events, if me and you were ever get together in person, have a beer, whatever, we would be doing my show, or we doing our show, or when I've had you on, it's basically just a conversation. And why not be on air? Why not stir the pot a little bit? It's come at great personal expense. Most of my old friends, they kind of just hate me now. A lot of my family have become, it's all love, but they look at me differently and stuff like that, because in The Godfather Part 2, Hyman Roth says, "This is the business that we have chosen," and so we take risks, and we kind of know what we get into when we step into this realm. And but yeah, it's just, I guess it's a hobby, or it's almost like my personal vlog or whatever, where I'm just trying to it's my live journal. So I do it it's all love, man. That's why I do it. It's love and fun, and I love God, and I talk about God on most streams. So that's basically it.
Yeah, I could feel it coming on your show, man. I felt like it was all love. Like didn't matter if we agreed or disagreed. It was old school. That's like how conversations used to be. At least for me, I don't know if it's changed for other people, but for me, like people don't have these type of conversations anymore, and it's weird. And I really like that you're kind of bringing it back, or keeping that alive. Let me ask, what is role? You're a music teacher. What role does the music play a role in your diversity here, or getting into these political topics?
Well, I mean, it plays a role sometimes because I use media clips and I try to find funny songs, and I get songs sent to me that are funny about current event topics. Sometimes I'll break into song when I'm something, a certain topic will remind me of something. I'm a musical guy, so it's always kind of on my mind. And some of my song lyrics are slightly political, although I try to really couch it in irony and other things like that. But that's interesting about how does music play a role in my actual political live streaming? That might be something that my fans know a little bit better than me, because when I start, when I run my daily show, the Daily Ignoramus, I have, like 80 tabs up in the browser, and I'm clicking through them and going in order and stuff like that. But other than the template of the tabs, I'm kind of doing raw improvising the entire time, where I'll respond to something in the chat. I'll think of something. It'll come up with a movie reference. I'll type that into YouTube, pull it on screen, and I'm kind of improvising the whole time. So I'm a natural improviser, and that's the type of music. I'm a trained jazz piano player. So I've been improvising my whole life, and I've refined that skill into just being able to flow with media for hours and hours, whether that be music or my live stream. But music gets brought. There's times in my show where I will think about how it relates to music or practice habits, and I'll go on like a 45-minute music lecture rant that has nothing to do with politics. So, again, I mentioned this earlier that this started off as a news show, like almost a normie political news show, but now I call it a reality show because I guess we're going to get to this, how the current events and my life have intersected, and how I talk about my failures. So it's just, to me, just a reality show. So if I want to go in a direction, I just go there. So music does play a role in that. I'm just not sure how. I would have to rewatch footage or something.
No, that's a great answer. If you're used to improvising with jazz,
Yeah.
then that's kind of the same thing you're doing here. And I mean, the talent you have reminds me of Salty Cracker. I don't know if you're a fan of his.
Yeah.
But that's what I feel like he does. I was listening to his live yesterday, and I'm like, this bruh is so talented. It's crazy. Like, he just does the live. He's doing his voices. He's doing these references. And I'm like, damn, his brain is just boom, 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 boom. And you do the same type of thing. I have Stephen Ignoramus's YouTube channel in the chat. It's pinned. Subbing is caring. Go ahead and check that out.
Cool.
We're going to talk about J6, and we'll talk about as much or as little. I was figuring it probably would take the full conversation. I have not had a full-fleshed J6 conversation on here. I had a react early on, but what are you have thoughts already?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you something. What were you doing? What were you doing that day?
Man, I will never forget it. I will never forget that day. I will never, ever forget that day. And I wasn't doing anything good, but I will never forget that day. I was working. I was at home working because I was working from home virtually. And all the stuff started popping off. Leading up to it, I had done a video, and I had called it MAGA's Last Stand. And that was the first time YouTube has ever censored me. They didn't give me a strike, but they took the video down. And I didn't, like a rookie back then, I didn't even save the video. I don't have the video to this day. They took the video down, and I was like, dang, that's crazy, because I didn't do anything crazy in that video. And then, so I'm like, man, it might be crazy. So I was on Twitter. And I was chatting a lot with the friend of the show, Will Cormier, and Twitter, it was just insane as the news came out. So I wasn't doing anything real, man. I was on Twitter, but following every minute as it went down.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those days, dude. It really is. I'm trying to think of a single day thing of the last 10 years. I mean, 9/11 comes to mind, but that was more than 10 years ago. But I'm trying to think of other single day events where, like in history, I mean, there's the Oklahoma City bombing, or OJ or something like that from the 90s, 9/11. But J6 will be, I mean, regardless of the outcome, I like being a part of history. I was down there streaming at the George Floyd riots, the BLM riots in 2020, and I feel the same way, where it's like, I don't agree with a single thing to do with the left's BLM George Floyd narrative, but I can appreciate history. I've been a student of history my entire life, and intersect like we are just individual guys, and that tidal wave of history is always coming. And sometimes the individual man gets swept up in that, and that is just, am I just like a drug addict or whatever? I mean, I don't do drugs, but like that is a high that I'll remember for the rest of my life. It's like, I'm not trying to say it's the same thing as, D-Day or something like that, but you see these old timers that they're like what it was like to storm the beaches at Normandy, and they're like, that is like a day that movies get made about it. It's going to be talked about forever. So yeah, I was there. I was in the Capitol. I'm paying for it. Like, we'll get to this, but I'm going to jail tomorrow for the second weekend of 3. But it was a high octane day, and I love asking people what they were doing that day, because everyone has it's like the JFK. What were you doing the day JFK got killed?
Yeah, I'm gonna play this clip from Steven's channel here, and it's amazing how you make light of it. You were in that live one day. I was in there, and you were talking about how 50 years from now or whatever, 20 years from now, everybody's gonna say they were there, like even if they weren't there.
Yeah, yeah.
But you were really there. Here's a little video that you posted.
What's up, y'all? I'm getting ready to go to jail. It's my first weekend of 3, so wish me luck. Just gonna upload this quick video. Not missing any live streams. I'm just gonna be in here for the weekend, 3 days in a row. So I'm getting ready to self-surrender or something like that. So pray for me. Pray that I can share the gospel with people at some point in here. Hopefully they'll give me a Bible, and I'll be able to spend some time reading the scripture. But love you guys so much, and I'm just I don't know. It's not like me to make a video that's under 3 hours. This is going to be less than a minute, but God bless you guys, and I'm going in for the first time, and I'll be reporting back when I get out in a couple days. Peace. What's up, y'all?
At times, I'm
getting ready to go to jail.
At times, people, they don't understand why I will associate with and talk with people like yourself, and you're going to jail. And the first thing you mentioned was, I'm not going to miss a live stream. Like, this dude is dedicated.
Yeah.
The first thing he says is like, oh, yeah, good thing is I'm not going to miss a live stream. Second thing, I think you're talking about the gospel and the Bible.
Yep.
And gratefulness and love in that moment. And you look at, and I'm not going to name anybody specifically, but people in other situations are anywhere near as serious as that, and they've got no faith. They've got no appreciation and no nothing. Tell me about you making that video, and why are those the things in your mind?
Well, I just have I'm just a strong Christian, man. I mean, it's weird. I say strong Christian, but to me that's just a Christian. But it seems like there's so many weak Christians now that you almost have to clarify it or something like that. But I just believe in God. I believe in Jesus Christ. And I think that this life is temporary and the eternal is eternal. And I think a little bit, it's not necessarily genetic, but I've always just had a joyous attitude where bad things have happened. And I get down in the dumps like some people, like anyone else, but I've always had the smile comes easy to my face, and I can look on the bright side. And I've just also studied a lot in the last couple of years about what we're supposed to pray for, as it says in the Bible. And it doesn't say to pray for things like comfort or even necessarily health. Is what we're supposed to thank. We're supposed to thank God. We're supposed to praise Him in all things, and we're supposed to ask for what we need, and we're supposed to pray for God's will to be done. And He wills that we're to share His kingdom with other people. So I try to, more and more. I fail at this. I sin all the time, but I just try to always return to what really matters in life. It's not that I don't have a moment of weakness, or I just am happy. I'm happy with where I'm at in life, even though that means I'm going to jail for a little bit. Maybe it would be different if I was going to jail for like a year or something like that. I mean, some of the decisions I made that day, had I done something different, it would have resulted me in going to jail for a lot longer time. And would I be different? I don't know. I don't think my friends and my fans would say I'd be that much different. But yeah, I'm grateful to be here. I'm here for a reason. It's part of the story. That makes it easier. Like it's part of the arc. I mean, one thing I try to do with my show is I don't like this. I was watching, seems like it might not be related, but I was watching an episode of the Don Jr. show. the other day on Rumble. And it was one of the worst pieces of content I've ever seen in my entire life. And it was like you're in a and he's doing like, I don't know, he's making expressions, he's using his hands, but it's like a flat line pulse. What I like is like the arc of a story, like it's a roller coaster. You're like abracadabra. You're like, you have a quiet voice and then you hit them with something like big. And I like dynamics and I like an arc of stuff. And I can see God's hand in the historical arc working in my life, small potatoes as I am. But I'm just grateful to God. That's more important than anything. And I love reading the Bible. That's basically it. I mean, I can see God's path in front of me, so I'm just grateful for that.
Yeah, you know what you just brought out there was the music. I used to play in orchestra. I used to play violin, viola. I played piano too. I was never great at any of these, but crescendos, diminuendos, highs, lows, fast, all different types. That's what you're talking about there with that. And going into that place, do you think that's what's getting you through this in such a, if you didn't tell me, I wouldn't have known. So do you think that faith is what's getting you through?
Yeah, it has to be. Yeah, it's I depend on it in all things. And I will say though, like that video, I'm gonna make one tomorrow. Okay, I'm gonna make one tomorrow when I go in, and I hope I'm that cheerful and grateful in the video. But I gotta tell you, man, that jail is the most boring place. I mean, I don't even like using the word boring. Like, it was like an anguish torture level of boring. 48 hours, lights never turn off. I had to petition so hard to just get a Bible.
Wow.
And you're just in booking. You're just in on a concrete slab for 48 hours. So I had actually expectations that it would be a little bit more tolerable than it was. But it's kind of, I don't know, man. I'm a little bit immature. I'm a little bit infantile at points where life still is a one big joke to me. I mean, I've always been like this. I don't know how much of this I really want to change. I don't know how much of this will ever change. But I've always taken life not seriously enough for some people. But in some ways, I'm really serious. But I've always just been like, it's gonna end. It could be tomorrow, and it is what it is. But definitely, if I would have known what I know tomorrow, I probably will talk about this on the short I put up there on my channel, because it's just, I can't. When I got out of jail, I was like, I cannot believe I have to go in 2 more times, because it's just the minutes drag by. I mean, I remember one time last weekend, I thought that like 2 hours went by, and I looked at the clock and 15 minutes had gone by. So it's just, it is tedious, but it'll be over soon, and it is what it is, right?
Yeah, in this digital age, I will fully admit, I've talked about it on the channel, I got a phone with me at all times, within reach every second.
Yeah.
It would be tough with, that sounds as silly as it sounds, but that will make the time go slower. And the other thing that would really scare me, but I don't know if it would be a good thing or not for me, is that you got nobody there but yourself.
Well,
right?
No. See, no. You're in there with everybody else.
Oh,
so okay. That part was actually once I kept pretty quiet in there. I was taking a lay of the land, and so for anyone that hasn't been in jail or whatever, when you get arrested, you get put in the county jail. You get put in booking, and booking is what you get put in. If you're going to be there for a long time, a day or more, you get put in population after like 12 hours in booking. If you get bonded out, you get bonded out of booking. I'm a federal inmate at a county jail, and so I'm in booking for the 48 hours straight. So there's other people coming in. There's anywhere between like 2 and 9 people in there at all times. And I kept to myself until I realized that conversation is the way. This is a funny story. And it was interesting. I get in there, and there's this black dude in there. I say black because he was the only black guy I saw the whole time, so I remember him very, very well. And this guy, this is a great story. Everyone's like, "What you in for?" Like that is the number one conversation in there. Like, what are you in here for? Right? You're trying to pass the time, trying to shoot the shit. So. It says on my on the glass outside, if you're a federal inmate, if you're being transferred or if you're getting bonded out. And it says, so my name's Stephen Baker. It says Baker, Stephen, Fed, 48 hours, right? So he knows I'm a federal inmate. And this guy's like, what are you in for? You're a Fed? And I was like, trespassing. It's actually a different charge. I got charged with picketing, parading, and demonstrating in a federal building. And I was like, trespassing in a federal building. And I was like out of DC. And he instantly, I could not believe how fast this guy was like, oh, you're one of those. And me and him locked eyes, and we knew instantly that he was talking about the Capitol. And I was like, no way, bro. I was like, you figured that out that fast? He's like, yeah, man. He's like, who else would it be? I mean, what other federal building are people in jail for in the last year or so, 2 years? So anyway, my point is that we hit it off and we talked for hours, but passing the time with conversation with other fellas is that, and sleep is more precious than gold, because it's all about whittling away the hours. So that was an interesting story about. I have a lot of. I did a 2.5 hour rant on Monday just telling the stories from jail. So I'll do that again on this coming Monday. But yeah, you definitely talking to other people. If I was there alone without a Bible, I'd be like swole right now. I would just be doing push-ups all day. So yeah, maybe blessing and a curse, right?
Yeah, man, that is a great story, and yeah, now that you're setting the picture, okay, I can see it. Like, how many people were in there?
Okay, so when a new person that comes in is going to be there for anywhere from 2 hours to 12. Well, unless you're getting transferred out, and then I was in there with this one guy for 43 hours, and we really hit it off. This guy is a former, I don't know what to call, he's a former Aryan Brotherhood prison gang member, and now he's a Christian. And me and him hit it off, talked for 12 hours out of 40. But yeah, and the new people are in there anywhere from 2 to 12, sometimes up to 40. And so I was in there with about 30 different people over the 48 hours, but no more than 8 people can fit in this room. Mm-hmm. So usually it's about 4 or 5, and some of them just sleep the day away. Some of them talk to you. Some of them keep to themselves. But yeah, it's usually 4 or 5 up to 8 or 9.
Yeah, one of the questions that I don't think we've really fleshed out as a country is, why do you think a lot of people were there on J6?
Why do you why? Okay, so this is an interesting point, and I get into a lot of disagreements with for lack of a better word, patriot, boomer, Gen X conservatives on this one, because a lot of them, or just online right wingers, because a lot of them just want to say that it was feds and Antifa. Now, you're talking about an event that 250,000 people were at, just on the Capitol grounds. There was 1 million in DC. And when that happens, it's are you saying that there was 250,000 feds? Hell no. There's not 250,000 members. There's not 25,000 members of Antifa. So what the biggest population was pissed off boomers and Gen Xers. And me, when I was in the Capitol on my live stream, I was telling jokes and stuff. I was doing a robot voice, being boomers activated, Gen X activated, because it just activated the thing that everyone knows happened in 2020 that shall not be named. It pissed a bunch of people off. Everyone knows that whatever it was unjust, that it was definitely suspect. So what happened that day? There were Asian provocateurs. It was planned. I mean, it was definitely a planned and allowed to happen. There's always videos of cops letting people in. Nancy Pelosi had a documentary crew with her that day, and you don't just call them that morning. That happens well in advance. Nancy Pelosi's daughter has actually emailed me a bunch of times trying to get me on her documentary, which I'm not going to do. She's making a documentary about J6. Alexandra Pelosi. Stop emailing me, Alexandra. But what happened that day, it was a complicated historical event, but it was mostly pissed off patriots that got fed up. And I don't know if you've ever been in a mob or anything before. The mob, it takes on, the hive mind is a real thing. you go along. I didn't do that. I made a conscious decision to run forward when I saw the barricades go down, because I'm a live streamer. I wasn't there as a protester. I was there as a live streamer and a comedian and an entertainer who happened to agree with the people there. But when I see content, I run, and that's what happened that day. So yeah, I mean, it's complicated, but people online, they need things so simple, and that's one of the things I do with my programming is I will simplify when it's useful or true. But with this one, with the historical events, it's complicated. Was it a riot? Elements? Was it a insurrection? Absolutely not. Was it a protest? Definitely. Was it kind of hilarious in a way? Yeah. So I don't know, dude. It's just history, man. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I think all of that's fair. It's a lot of things. No incident like that is all one thing.
Yeah.
So I think people have, different people with different angles take one thing and blow it up into
Yep.
it was all this, all that. But one thing that I have said about this, and I, saying it respectfully, of course, and I really say it a lot in respect to Alex Jones, was because Alex Jones is big on saying, hey, don't fall for the bait or anything like that. My biggest takeaway from J6 is, for me personally, is never protest in the Lion's Den, which is DC, New York. Is that fair to say? Do you think that's too simplified? I think anything you do, because you get caught and hemmed up, you're with the DC jury, with the DC lawyers, all of them against you. Is that a legitimate take?
It's definitely legitimate in that it's a very good argument. Is that do I agree with the word never there? See, the thing is I'm not a big protest guy. I think activism is kind of cringe. So I think that I'm closer to never protest than I am never protest in the Lion's Den. I think DC needs to be just broken up. I mean, there should be no thing called DC. It shouldn't exist. It should be absorbed into Maryland. It should be absorbed into some of Virginia, and all those agencies need to be put in, like, one in Kansas City, one in Des Moines, Iowa, one in Grand Rapids, Michigan. The federal government should not be physically centralized like that, because you get this whole insider club, this beltway think tank. I believe in an elite. I think elites will always be there, and they should be there. But something about the physical proximity I don't like. No, I mean, but I do think that, I'm a huge fan of the March for Life. I think that abortion is the biggest no-brainer moral issue of our time, or I guess immoral issue. And so I like the March for Life. I don't know. I have to think about that. I kind of it struck a chord with me that, but what is built into our founding, though, is that rebellion is legit. I don't think that, because it says in Romans 13, it basically says that overthrowing the government is a sin. So I don't agree. I think the American Revolution was immoral, just on biblical grounds. And it doesn't mean that I want to be British. Who would want to be British? I mean, but I do see things through a biblical lens. So I think that overthrowing the government, even if they get completely tyrannical, is not. I mean, there may be exceptions that are outlined in the Bible, but I don't know. I think that, to me, the activism and protesting is like the old way. The new way is straight up snatching power. That's how I promote activism. I think that the cool people should be running shit, and people that suck shouldn't be. And that's why I'm not really like a libertarian, I guess, because power is going to be there, and I think it should be me and my boys.
What a quote. That's why, but I think that's a legitimate take. I lean way more on the libertarian side, but you have a legitimate take. Power is always going to be there. The libertarians, we're talking about more of a utopia when we say that there should be no government, for example. Is that a realistic thing? I mean, you could argue it, but I think what you're arguing is a more realistic thing, that there
Yeah.
is going to always be power. And that's why I do mess with, we've talked about people like Nick Fuentes, who's an authoritarian. I have no, I don't rock with him all the way, and yourself as well, right?
Yeah.
You would consider yourself a Christian nationalist authoritarian? Or?
Sure. I mean, I'm a favor of. I mean, I don't know. You know, it was funny because last time you were on the show, I was just like, you're like, yeah, individualism is the underpinning of the West, and I was like, yeah, that's one of the bad parts. I was like, yeah, we got to change all that. I like everything else about it. But I don't know. But I mean, I recognize the authority of God. I recognize the authority of the governments that God ordained, which is all of them actually. It says that in the Bible. And I'm certainly not an individualist in the sense that I don't think the individual is the underpinning of society. I believe that's the family. But yeah, I mean, I care more about a Christian government than I care about a Christian nation, though. Like, I think that if it's going to be the local or the state, I'll take Christianity on any and all levels if I can get it. Whether that's America, awesome. That would be a good thing. Whether that's the world, that's a little weird because we get into like end times, one world religion type thing. I do believe in that everyone should be Christian, but yeah, sure, Christian nationalist or monarchist. I'm more of a monarchist in that I think if a city state is autonomous, it should have a king, and that king should be Christian. So I'm kind of like a Christian monarchist in a way. And if that's America, then cool. But then we have to deal with the opposition, and that might not be pretty. In the same way, if they snatch absolute power, well, they kind of have snatched a lot of power, and look how they're dealing with their opposition. You always have to worry with about how you're going to deal with your enemies. And I, in a way, would not like to do that. I would like to just deal with me and mine. Also a little bit utopian. But yeah, Christian nationalist is a good enough label, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned that there was a Bible verse on not overthrowing the government.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my thought on that is, if hypothetically a government does not live up to its agreement as far as like the process where we choose people to represent us, do we still call it a government, and does that Bible verse still count?
Well, I mean, the Bible is not written to governments. I mean, there are parts in the Bible, if you look in the book of Deuteronomy and the book of Exodus, it does outline what the roles of a king are, and it does outline the process of Moses choosing, basically delegating, where he's choosing wise, competent men that fear God to serve under him in order to lighten his load. But in the book of Romans, I mean, most of the Bible is written to or for individuals or just the church. I'll read what it says in Romans. So this is Romans 13. It says, "Let every soul be subject unto higher powers, for there is no power but of God, but the powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God. And they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. Wilt thou not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same. For he is the minister of God to thee for good. But if thou do what is evil, be afraid. For he beareth not the sword in vain. For he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil." So it doesn't say about how government should be held to account, given that they buy into a process. They'll be judged. But I think they will be judged for lying, not for violating democracy. Like, no form of government is necessarily godly or not. That's just a process. So I don't know how they will be judged for violating their word, but does that mean that we get to violently overthrow them for violating that process? In my opinion, and there's a couple more scriptures I won't read, but absolutely not. We're to endure. We're to do good. We're to praise God. We're to act as Christians. But I think violently overthrowing the government is very non-biblical. Now, it happened in the Bible, But that doesn't, there's a lot of things in the Bible that they're saying happened, but they're not saying it's right. That it just ended up happening. God allowed judgment to happen against Israel a bunch of times in the Old Testament. But I don't know. I don't have really a clean answer for, because look, any idiot, if not any idiot, if you don't think what you just said, that the situation you just presented, if you think that's not happening today, you're just a sheep. Like, because they're not doing anything, they say. They're not doing anything. They're violating their whole process. So they're guilty of lying. They're guilty of idolatry. They're guilty of murder in some cases. They're guilty of all kinds of deception, but I do not think that is grounds for violently overthrowing. I do think that maybe separation, like things like secession, things like doing your own thing, things like ignoring them, maybe I'm wrong about the latter, are moral. But as far as violently overthrowing, it gets a little bit weird if you believe what the Bible says.
You talked about secession. Now you're coming down my alley, decentralization,
Hey, listen,
libertarianism.
listen, man. I will never not be a libertarian. This is why I'm anti-libertarian in terms of their presuppositions. I talked about this today, how libertarianism can be boiled down to the non-aggression principle and property rights. I totally believe in property rights. And I also believe that I just don't think that the NAP, as they present it, like all government is an initiation of force against a peaceful people. I don't believe that's true. But I do think that ending the feds, peaceful secession, negotiation, ending wars, I'll never totally get rid of my libertarian thing. I used to be a hardcore ANCAP in 2019. Totally ANCAP. And I've listened to, I know you're a fan of Dave Smith. I've listened to hundreds and hundreds of Dave Smith's podcasts. He's one of the better libertarians. But yeah, peaceful secession, that would be kind of lit, dude. Like, I think that would be very exciting. As far as I talked earlier about history, I think that would be very exciting. And I think that negotiating that would be one of the great historical events. So I'd be on board with it. Just like a peaceful secession in any place, it's just choosing to not be affiliated together anymore. But then it's like you get into who gets all the resources, who gets one of the sides. We are in a zero-sum game. That's where the peaceful secession thing, it's like a dream, but one of the entities, one of the wings is going to be able to call itself America. They're going to get most of the institutions. They're going to get most of the weapons, most of the resources. So this is why I like Fuentes more than Dave Smith, because he recognizes this zero-sum thing where it's going to come down one day, not necessarily in a war, but it's going to be a power struggle, and that's what we're in.
Yeah, we're in the informational, financial. I mean, they cut off his bank account, Ye's bank account.
Me too.
And
Me too.
Yours too?
Yeah, I got debanked from Wells Fargo. Yeah,
that's warfare.
Yep.
I mean, that's financial warfare right there. So we're already kind of in it. We don't want it to be kinetic or anything like that, for sure. If you're just tuning in, we've got Stephen Ignoramus. He's blacker than I am. He's wearing the Young, Gifted, and Black sweater. Represent. That's a dope sweater. That's a throwback.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I got this for my birthday. My birthday was over the weekend, and I had an early birthday party because I was in jail. But yeah, a good friend got me this amazing. Do you know what this is originally from?
Just from back in the day.
It's just 90s, right? It's just a throwback. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. There's a song. Right. There's a song from Nina Simone. I believe Nina Simone sung it first. There was one by there's a rapper called Intelligent Hoodlum back in the day. I believe he had a song called Young, Gifted, and Black. Beautiful songs. But the sweater's dope. Yeah, I'm serious. Okay. Man.
I've never heard that. That's one of the few like urban songs I haven't heard, man. I gotta get educated, man. Yeah, Nina Simone. Yeah, I'll look this up, dude.
Mm-hmm. But you were talking about people being unlived. This came out today. We're talking about J6.
Right. I haven't seen this yet. Yeah.
Let's check it out and see. I want to hear. I'm going to play it, and then we'll get Steven's thoughts and your thoughts in the chat on this. This is Kevin McCarthy.
One of the first things Marjorie Taylor Greene said from the oversight dais was that Ashley Babbitt was murdered. Do you think Ashley Babbitt was murdered, or do you think the police officer who shot her was doing his job?
I think the police officer did his job.
One of the first
that's
things.
That. If you didn't hear it.
Wow.
What's your thoughts?
Whoa. That was straight up to the point. I have complicated thoughts on this. I mean, not really. Like we'll get to what my conspiracy theory is in a second. But if you think that everything happened the way that it's presented, that's just it's like almost treason, man. Not treason because he's talking that way about a woman that was shot, not about his country or something like that. Dang, dude. That is really rough. Now he was doing his job. I mean, I can't distance myself from my theory on this. I don't think Ashley Babbitt was murdered. I don't think Ashley Babbitt died. I think that was a setup. That looked like a Hollywood set to me. Wow. The protesters and the cops were communicating with each other via like physical touches and stuff like that. That scene stinks. Maybe she did die and everyone else set it up around her, but there was definitely collaboration between the protesters and the cops in that room that resulted in her death happening or her death being faked. And this is one of my favorite things to say, and it doesn't benefit my side at all to have this stance. Like if people have made their careers off of being like, oh, patriot, I'm a patriot, and she's a red-blooded veteran, and but I think that there is something really weird afoot with the Ashley Babbitt thing. But say it did happen the way they say, Kevin McCarthy, man. I mean, this is why I talked to you about when you were on my show about like the bravery and the fortitude of these people that opposed Kevin McCarthy becoming the speaker, because it's going to be the same as it ever was. I mean, he just said it, dude. I think that he was doing his job. He just said it. That guy should be in jail. If it went down the way that they say, that guy should be in jail. But I don't know, man. It's hard for me to distance myself from the conspiracy theory side of it. And I just don't, the more and more, let me ask you before I give my next take. Okay. If we're talking about, I set this up on my show a couple weeks ago. Okay. If we're talking about us and them, most people think that they're on the side of us, and those that oppose them are on the side of them. And like, let's say that middle MAGA, you're on the good side. Okay. How much of the country, maybe not just the country, the people on Twitter, the people in government, in the media, the people that matter and they have a voice, what do you think the percentage is of people like you versus people that oppose you? That like friend versus enemy distinction. Let's assume for the sake of discussion that I am your friend. People like me are also on your side. Fuentes, whoever, everyone in the chat. What do you think the percentage looks like
of everybody who is engaged?
Yeah.
We're outnumbered. I mean, it's got to be 20-80.
Okay. Well, that's a pretty good take. I think that if you talk about like a Steven Crowder type or maybe a Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think most of them would probably say it's something like 35-65 or 40-60. Okay. 20-80 is like that. I didn't expect you to say that. That's pretty good. I've come to think in the last year, maybe since January 6th, definitely in the last year, that it's closer to 5-95 of people that, and now me and you, the more you get away from the liberty thing, if you're talking about people that are really like me and Nick Fuentes, maybe we would call people like you or Dave Smith not part of the friends, but not necessarily part of the enemies. But I've come to believe that it's so pale. Like it's 5%, 95. Like Gideon in the Bible, 300 people versus like 30,000 or something like that. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, Kevin McCarthy, all of them are just part of the same system. And you talked about that with Marjorie Taylor Greene, where she totally threw these people under the bus. And she's one of the furthest right people, quotes around that, in government. So it's not a lot of, but that's why I love God, man. If God's against us, if God's for us, who can be against us, So,
but that's why I say I don't want to make enemies. I'm not going to change my stance for anyone, but we can't afford to be making enemies. Yeah. Nick Fuentes is not my enemy. I mean, it's just not, and there's no
Yeah.
reason for. Now, if we get down the road at some point and it becomes too authoritarian, maybe I wouldn't say enemy, but maybe we diverge.
Yeah.
But we can't be making enemies out of nothing, and that's the problem I had with Ye. With Ye's comment, I didn't have a problem with exactly what he said, but the fear that I had was that he was lowering that number of friends. Like if
You mean
with
the Hitler
what
stuff?
Yes, that stuff. So
yeah.
you say that stuff, which I think he's bringing value to shock value in a good way. But do you understand my concern?
Yeah.
It's like, damn, if you say that, you're breaking up the friend group. We don't have that many friends. Or
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, the Ye thing, I mean, I remember when, from the time that Ye made that he wore the White Lives Matter sweatshirt all the way to the Hitler comments, it's like a 3-month period. I was doing like 4 or 5 hours on this guy every week. And there's a lot to be said about it. It's a very complicated issue. I don't know. I don't know about that. But like, I'm not saying I even disagree. I just don't know. Also, I'm just an entertainer, and that was one of the most lit comments. That Alex Jones interview, he said like 5 of the most outlandish things that you can't say what he said. And I think you did a stream on this where you cannot, he just crossed the Rubicon in such a crazy way. And it might not even be Ye that does it. We have to be looking down the road because I don't support Trump anymore. But what Trump did in 2016 is he crossed the Rubicon on a few different issues just on the way he talked. And that set up someone like Ye. And I would like to keep it pushed in that direction where you can say some lit stuff and be allowed in society. And maybe that's selfish because I say many lit things myself. But do we need that one? I have to think about. I mean, we definitely don't want a lot. We don't want any more enemies. I will say this. We don't want any more enemies than are necessary. But that doesn't mean we don't want enemies, because I want the wrong people to be my enemy. And I want the right people to be my friends. And, you're one of these really cool guys that you don't like disavow Kanye because he said that.
no, I don't
You
disavow
just-
anybody.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know, dude. It's again, I care about pleasing God. And if I'm the last person on earth, which I would never be because I know many other strong Christians, I would still be, Kanye says that he performs for an audience of one, and that's God. And if he's truly serving God, then we can have all the enemies in the world because the most strong entity is on his side. Now, I still am sometimes suspect of who Kanye's getting his like religious information from or whatever, like who his mentors are. He's a new Christian, but I don't know. I will know way more closer to 2024 and in 2024 when I see when he actually runs. I mean, the pundit that I respect more than anyone in the world, Nick Fuentes, is working with him. So I think that they'll shape that up. It's an interesting point. I'm not ready to say that you're wrong. Like we should not alienate people that should be our friends. But that was so lit what he said on Alex Jones, man.
Yeah, it was, and there's a value to that. I've been a little bit more spicier, I think, on Twitter, and it's just I think cutting through the noise, and then still trying to be true to yourself. That's the challenge. I never want to not be true to myself. That's for sure.
Right.
But you're right. Because I can't. How can I put a number on? Is he making the right enemies or not?
Yeah.
If Kanye is making the right enemies, then it's good. I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah, it's very interesting point because you can almost have to like measure the whole thing and make a list of who is on board, who isn't, and how much they matter where. Because it's a very astute observation you just made. Because you have to almost have to make a diagram, one of those like conspiracy theory charts of like everything's connected and like who matters to what. But so much of these institutions, man, they don't serve the kingdom of God. They don't serve America. They don't serve the people. I'm not a big I don't think as much is about money as people I think like social pressure and like power structure. I see things through the lens of power more so than money. I don't think that man lives on money alone. I think that this is a very common like lefty talking point where like the corporations own everything, and like why do they own everything? Because they want money. But you can't eat money. You can't like have kids on money. I mean, you need money to have kids, but it's very complicated. But yeah, I definitely like stirring the pot. That's what I liked about Trump. That's what I like about Ye. And I like people that will just say it and not qualify it. I mean, Ye was just like, dude, I like Hitler. And he said even especially Hitler. The way he's like every person has things of value to bring to society, especially Hitler. I was like, yo.
I know, that was like, wow. I'll never forget that day too. I was on Twitter on that day too.
Yep.
Anytime breaking news happens, I do jump on Twitter now.
Yeah.
But let me ask you about this. How were you feeling when Nick was back on Twitter for like 2 minutes?
Dude,
that was lit.
Me and the Groypers. Me and the Groypers were celebrating, man. I thought he was back for real because, I don't know if you know, but do you know about the Groyper genocides? There's been 2 of them. Do you know about these?
No, I have no idea.
Dude,
no.
Nick started he's had like 50 alt accounts over the past 2 years since he got banned.
Yeah, I know that.
So in late 2021, he started an alt account that got like 4,000 followers, and a bunch of Groypers jumped on his space. I actually talked to Nick for about 5 minutes on a Twitter space, and they banned every person that followed this dude. Not only did they ban Fuentes, they banned everyone that followed this dude, including me. Okay, then he got another alt about 6 months ago, and he got up to 11K, and they did it again. Every Groyper got banned. It was just digital genocide. Okay, so I thought, so this time when he got his check mark back, I thought it was going to be for real, but they axed him. I don't know, man. It's rough out there being far right, man. I'll tell you that right now. It's right. But it's rough out there. I mean, I was sad. I was so happy, then so sad.
Yeah, let me not play, but show you this from Laura Loomer. Yeah. Laura Loomer was talking about DeSantis. You said you're out on Trump. What does that mean when you say you're out on Trump? Because I have to kind of qualify mine. Like, I still don't. It's not like I hate Trump, but what do you mean when you say you're out of Trump?
Well, I definitely don't hate Trump. I mean, I hate DeSantis politically speaking. I don't mean hate him as a guy. I haven't met him, but like, I still always think Trump's funny. He's a funny guy, the best guy, wonderful guy. But look, Trump has just lost his edge, man. He's not going goblin mode. He's just all about the jabby stabby. I almost said a bad word here on YouTube.com. And he's just become the right-wing establishment, whereas DeSantis is emblematic of the center right. Trump he is the GOP now. He's just talking about like low taxes. And look, I mean, so many of the things that he brings up are important, like just saying it's the radical Democrats. But what about like women are pigs and Mexicans are rapists? And, like stuff like this is why Trump was the shit back in 2015, 2016. And I mean, I remember I live streamed his announcement, his candidacy announcement. It's just low energy, and I just think that he's trying to regain what happened, but he bought too far into the system. He's probably got bad people whispering in his ear or whatever. I was telling a guy in jail that I would vote for Trump. I would support Trump because my influence as a live streamer has more. That carries more weight than my vote. My vote's just a vote, but who am I going to tell people to support or whatever? I don't know as of right now. I mean, I like Trump more than DeSantis. There's some worlds that I would like a Democrat to be president again, not going to lie, just because I do embrace a little bit of the collapsitarian thing where it's like it just needs to get so bad that we just get a dictator, like a actual right-wing dictator. That I can see that argument. I cannot see an argument for DeSantis. I'll tell you that right now. I can see an argument for Ye. I could see an argument for Trump. I could see an argument for as far left as possible. I could see an argument for abstaining. But I can't see an argument for DeSantis. I can barely see an argument for Trump. But I still could see an argument for it because that means we're trying to preserve what we have. But no, I don't hate the guy, but no, I'm off the Trump train. And one of Kanye's things is he's saying one of his goals is to reform Trump. So I can see that just to make Trump a little bit more based. But time will tell. And as of right now, I'm just full team yay.
Yeah, and for DeSantis has done some things I like, but let me bring up DeSantis and some of the problems that I might have and Stephen might have here. This is Laura Loomer. She tweets, but after all, why would Governor Ron DeSantis help these J6 political prisoners who are being tortured? His job during the Iraq War was to oversee the torture of prisoners at Guantanamo Bay, and he allowed Capitol Police to enter Florida after J6 to hunt down and arrest Trump supporters, and he allowed the FBI running up in Mar-a-Lago as well. That's separate. She didn't tweet that part, but here's a picture from the Tampa Bay Times. DeSantis says he's glad violent Trump protesters are being arrested. He says he hasn't seen anything specific regarding FBI warnings about armed mobs marching on state capitol. So she just has the different concerns here. DeSantis wants J6 hearings to get Trump indicted, report claims that's allegedly. DeSantis condemns Capitol riots as Florida Republicans. Most people caught up in J6 are from Florida. It doesn't matter what banner you're flying under. DeSantis says the violence is wrong. So I understand where he's saying there, but there's some level of concern that I have that if he were to announce, I would want to see some type of reconciliation. So we do have to wrap up. Any thoughts on DeSantis before I ask you one last question about?
Yeah, I mean that one article was like the most inflammatory one was said reports say, and it was like a person close to the campaign. That's like seems like the media being the media. Now, I mean, I do think that if you are at a protest and you attack a cop, that you should be arrested. And I do believe in destruction of property. But also there's this weird thing, and this is another, you might like this take because this is very libertarian. I think public property should be abolished because there's this weird distinction between like whose house, our house, and like my shit, your shit. And I don't think that there should be like a building out there that collectively belongs to all of us, because that means all of us or a group of us that call us gets to storm it at any time. I mean, in a way, those were their windows that they broke, even though, like, what percentage? It just makes no sense. So I think if you do attack a person, that's why I believe in, like, life, liberty, and property. I don't believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I believe in life, liberty, and property, but liberty as it relates to life and property. Though that's what liberty to do what's right and liberty to protect what's yours. So I do think that it's all about in the media. It's all about how it's worded. Because if I were to say that white people did a certain thing, does that mean all white people? Does that mean some, or just like a group of white people? Same thing with like he thinks violent Trump supporters should be arrested. If there's a murderer that's a Trump supporter, he should be arrested. You know, so I tend to not. I mean, I do think the people being held without bail, like, you know, held in the DC gulag, they should be let out. It should be the government should have to live up to what they've agreed to. Like the system, the Constitution's not about me. The Constitution is about the government. They've the ones that have bought into that. Here's my libertarian side coming out, like, because they agreed to a thing. So, I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun, a good time in 2024. If DeSantis announces versus Trump, maybe Ye on the stage, Nikki Haley just announced. Trump gave his approval on that one.
On what?
So, yeah, I mean, he said that Nikki Haley called Trump.
Oh, I didn't know
And-
that.
Yeah, and he was like, "Do what you got to do, whatever's in your heart."
That's funny.
So I don't know. I mean, I tend to, if it comes from the media, I tend to not give it too much credibility. But that I'll tell you, I know you didn't ask about that right now, but like that McCarthy thing coming out of his mouth saying that he did his job, I'm walking like that. That's really bad.
Yeah, the way he said it too was kind of savage too. Slip.
Oh, this guy's just giving me shit. This is one of my regulars right
Oh,
here.
is it?
Nick was
But I-
opening the door to Trump
He was.
last. I listen. Hey man,
did,
I
though.
listened to that Fuentes show, and
So
I'm
did I.
not a. Yeah, okay.
Well, he didn't open the door totally, but he was happy that Trump used the word globalist.
Yeah,
Yeah, I heard that too.
this is one of
But
my
let-
regulars.
Okay, cool. So we've got a lot of Nick supporters in here. Yeah, he's just, I mean, whether you like Nick or not, he's very talented, entertaining streamer. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we got to be out, man. It was great having you as always. We haven't had a bad discussion yet, man. Just
Yeah.
great stuff. How do people reach you? What's the best way to support you?
Yeah, the same guy says LOL in the chat right now. Well, it's written on the board behind me. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's JRNormus. I feel like I've had like 35 Twitter accounts at this point, but yeah. Ignoramus Media on YouTube. I also stream over there on Rumble at just the name Ignoramus. Steven Ignoramus on Odyssey. I really got to get my brand together because it just seems like I have 35 names. But Ignoramus Media, I'm actually taking a break from that channel right now. It's called, and so the channel I'm on right now because of a strike, channel I'm on right now is called The Dumb Stream. The Dumb Stream. Everything I do is about not knowing anything and being ignorant and stuff like that. So you guys find me out there, but if you follow me on Twitter, that's how you get all the announcements and stuff like that. But Middle Maga, thank you so much for having me on. I love talking to you, man. This is down to come on anytime. You're welcome on my show anytime. And I'm looking at starting maybe a panel show once a month, and love to have you on that. But yeah, we'll keep in touch, man.
For sure, man. Hit me up. Always great. He always plays dumb, but as you can see, this bro right here is really smart. Steven Ignoramus, appreciate you. He's young, gifted, and black, by the way.
That's right. I got to take a DNA test, man. People keep telling me that.
You might be like a quarter black Garrett.
Yeah,
Where his
true.
old name. All right, man. Appreciate you. Peace. Take care, everybody.